Hello, gentlemen. Welcome back. It's our show, Confidently Wrong. This is episode like 1,000 at this point, I think.
Woo!
Yeah.
172.
Okay. It's
Congrats.
like comic books. You just start renumbering somewhere, and
We have a
that's the new
limited
number.
edition.
We haven't broken continuity though.
Yeah.
Yep.
When is our ultimate reboot of everything?
When we're
Lots
gonna
of-
do the reboot.
Oh my god, there's gonna be an ultimate version of our show.
Where everyone dies. Or
We'll
Everybody's
reset
a
it back to
different race.
teenagers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're gonna reboot Wesley as a black woman. Recast me.
Wokeism.
This is gonna be the confidently woke.
We're gonna be Latinx trans in a wheelchair.
Hell yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Every religion under the sun.
So Brian's here, Sav is here, obviously. We also have a guest spot, friend of the show, Albert, has kindly agreed to join us. Hello, Albert.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, he's not dialing in from Taiwan. He's actually in the same building as I am right now.
In
Within
the same room.
We're not in the same room. I can't see him physically.
We don't have conclusive evidence just yet, but I'm convinced you guys are on the other side of the
We're
table.
high-fiving each other right now.
Wes in his compound. He's in the East Wing. Oh boy, about to have Alfred bring them some tea. Master Nakamura. Your tea.
Well, we do have an upstairs and a downstairs, so I feel pretty rich.
I said what I said. Boy,
Well,
literally
when
got
you
level.
said compound, like you're acting as though that's a mansion, but in my head, when you said compound, I was like Osama bin Laden's compound
Yeah.
when he was hiding with all
Several
the
buildings.
pornography.
I mean, but wasn't that crib, like, objectively as a crib, wasn't it, like, not half bad? Like,
That could be
multiple
true.
floors.
I
It's
think
better than
I
what
think
I
it had
got.
walls.
I mean,
It
I
had
think,
walls.
Yeah, I think he was doing better than me. I'm in a one bedroom. I'm in a one bedroom. I think I'll take Osama's
Well,
compound. No,
As far as we
Yeah.
know, you haven't managed to mass murder people. So I'd say you're doing better than he is, objectively.
Well, you
I'd
know
say.
who else has a compound is Elon Musk. So, Wes, you're trending right now.
My goodness. Elon Musk, get out of here. All right. So this show
You got
is...
11 kids, Wes?
He has 11 kids?
He's got a shit ton of kids. Him
He
and
has-
Nick Cannon are in a
has
competition.
He has what you would call a litter, some would say.
What?
A brood. A
This guy is
sports
ugly as hell and
team.
awkward as hell. How does he have 11 kids?
He's the richest man on earth.
Yeah, like you answered the question you know the answer to already. Like, yes, Albert, he's the richest man on. It will be hard to be the richest man on earth and not have a bunch of kids. As far
But
as
he
I'm
hasn't been
concerned.
the richest man on earth for 11 kids
Well, he's
worth
been
of
a
years.
rich. Okay, was he being?
He's
a
been
rich
really
man?
rich.
Okay, like you saying, unless
As
you got the
he's gotten-
number one spot.
I
As
mean,
he's gotten richer, he's gotten more kids and wives. That's how it goes. The scale
Lex
is growing.
Luthor doesn't have 11 kids. That's,
hey, I've seen guys
incredible.
that drive Corollas with a lot of kids. So
so it's not
it's
the
not
rich.
a,
Who drive,
it's not a
I've
tall
seen people
bar.
who drive nothing with a lot of kids. All they can drive is the people around them crazy.
But all right, this
right.
show is going to be a little bit out of our wheelhouse, I would say, or unexpectedly interesting for us. Savon unwisely let me and Brian pick the topic of the next couple of shows.
bro.
He had to leave the show early before we had planned what we were going to watch, and he was
I
like,
think he had to
"Guys,
take a dump.
yeah,
Yeah, if you want to really throw me under the bus, yeah, I had to use
Yeah,
the restroom.
absolutely.
We were recording for a while. I
hey,
had
it's
to
a
go
natural
potty.
bodily function."
Yeah, but I got unnaturally screwed.
So you left it up to Brian. I believe you said, "I trust you guys. Just let me know." And so me and Brian hashed it out for
Fatal
a few
error.
hashed it out for a few minutes, and we were like, "Okay, well, what about Gladiator? Because we just did a Gladiator show." And we're like, "Well, that might be a lot of Gladiator all in a row. Like, do people really want to hear about two Gladiator shows right after one another?" And we were like, "Well, Savon hasn't seen Arcane, so that maybe wouldn't be as good." And they were like, "Well, but it's really good. I really want to talk about it. It's going to be good, and we know that
think
the
you said
animation has
that.
been good." I did, yeah. And I was like, Savon could just watch a season 1 recap. He'll be fine. So we did pick Arcane, although we'll do that show later. But the one we came up with was like, well, it's going to be Thanksgiving time pretty soon. And we know like family get-togethers and family wants to go see movies. And it's kind of a good date night movie. We picked Wicked, the movie.
Of the Glickid combo, we went with the Ickid. Even though we talked about Gladiator for an hour.
We did.
On our last episode, curveball twist.
We were Gladiator out,
welcome.
I think is probably
We
what happened
talked
there.
about Gladiator 2 and said if we're gonna do Gladiator 2, let's maybe do a recap of retrospective of Gladiator 1.
Gladiator 1 primed us for Wicked 1.
Clearly. It's really my fault for not being able to see that very logical, this is how we got from A to some unknown letter in
We were trying to do you a solid so that you didn't have to go see another movie and then see one movie with like Tony. We're like, look, you can just have one date night movie and not have to see two.
Gladiator.
Well, we didn't know that Tony wanted to see Gladiator.
That wasn't a choice. I would have saw it alone. That wasn't. Instead, I saw Wicked alone. I got the worst end of this deal.
Wow.
Yeah, because Tony didn't want to go see it with you.
Yeah, I was like, hey, babe, you want to see
she was
Wicked?
not
She's like,
down.
no, she don't want to see that shit.
Maybe I like her more.
Having to see Wicked as if I had to go to the DMV or the dentist. Like it was a previous week. I was like, I really got to see that movie.
Albert,
Like,
did
hey,
you
you
feel like I twisted your arm into going seeing Wicked so I could prepare for this pod?
I was a little on the fence. You know, like going to movies nowadays is not easy. You got other people. You might get a bad seat. The prices are not.
No, there are no
cheap.
bad seats in theaters now. With the reserved seating, it's very rare that you have a bad seat.
I feel like you should only go when it's like an epic blockbuster. So when you mentioned Wicked, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna be the third wheel to you and your wife's date. So I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
We got a babysitter. Like we did the whole thing to get.
Oh,
to get
so
to
the
show.
three of you went?
The three of us went.
Like Dorothy on the Yellow Brick Road
That's
style.
Us. Yeah, when we hadn't picked up the Cowardly Lion yet, or whoever was last.
Pre-Lion.
All right, well, let's get into it. So we're into Wicked, the movie. We'll talk about it being a part one a little bit later. So it's a movie based on a musical, which is based on a book, which is kind of written in response to the classic Wizard of Oz story that we know from way back in the day. And it's a chance to kind of reframe and reshift your thinking on this world and some of the events that occurred, and give you a little bit more backstory to a character who, on the original Wizard of Oz story, starring now I can't think of her name.
Judy Garland,
starring Judy Garland, a character that was rather one-dimensional. You know, it was the evil, wicked witch of the West, and the book and the stage show both kind of brought this to life in a way that gave us a new understanding of what her feelings were and where she came from and her background and stuff like that. And that's where this movie takes place as well. Have you had any experience with either Wicked the book or Wicked the stage show before walking into this movie? Sav, I think I know the answer. What is your experience with Wicked?
Nothing. I didn't know anything.
Great.
So
moving along.
I didn't know
Brian.
about none of it.
Brian, do you have any background or experience with Wicked?
I watch a lot of musicals, more than I'd like to admit. Probably just because of the people I'm surrounded by. As a singer, and has seen a lot of shows. My sisters have seen a lot of shows. Wicked is one of those ones that I have managed to escape from.
Really?
I had never seen it. I had never heard a single song from it, even though I know every single musical theater nerd out there. Wicked gives them the hugest, ragingest, like, I'm not going to finish that sentence.
Yeah.
But Wicked is, that is their hell of a drug.
Yeah.
Wow.
But no prior knowledge.
Okay.
Other than Wizard of Oz.
And The Wiz.
Did you purposely?
The Wiz. I know The Wiz.
Okay.
Which
Michael
is probably
Jackson,
the best version.
Did you purposefully avoid it? Like you knew that it wasn't going to be up your alley?
No, it's just one
never,
of those things that the opportunity never arose. Nobody was ever like, hey, Brian, you know what we should go do? We should watch Wicked together. Never happened.
Never happened. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Even though you see a fair number of theater shows, right? Like a couple times a year?
Oh, yeah. I've seen Hamilton. I've seen Book of Mormon. I've seen, name something else.
I've probably seen Lion King.
I've seen Avenue Q.
Lion King?
No, I tend to avoid the Disney ones. I didn't see Color Purple, but I have seen, blanking on the names. I've seen a bunch of shit.
Rent?
Of course. I've seen Rent like a billion times.
All right. Albert, what's your experience with Wicked?
I think I saw
stage
it
show?
10 years ago or something. It was not memorable. I don't remember anything. So going into it, I was like super fresh. I didn't see the trailer.
You saw the stage show?
Yes.
Or you read the book? Okay, stage show.
Didn't read the book, yeah.
No. I didn't even know there was a book until like 2 weeks ago. And so I had seen the stage show a few years ago in New Orleans when I still lived there. So I guess that's been like 6-7 years ago or something at this point. And I went in thinking I don't really like love musicals. Like, it's hard to follow the story when everything's done in song. Like, what are you doing? And I didn't think it was my jam. And so, but Jen wanted to go, so I was like, whatever, it's fun. It'll be a fun date night. So we went to the theater, and I remember not the story itself. I just remember thinking, wow, this is awesome. Like, I connected with the actors that were doing the show. There were like really quiet moments and then really loud moments, and just all of that together.
You sound like a child describing theater.
It was loud.
It was loud.
It was quiet.
I mean, quiet.
It was happy.
Oh my
it was
God.
sad.
It was cold. Sorry. Keep cooking.
Yeah, Albert comes on the show, and y'all just turn up the roasting to another notch.
I love it.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah,
we got an audience
ground.
now.
Yeah. It's like me and Albert's common ground is you.
And I remember really liking the show. I thought, wow, this is like a really good show. It didn't even cross my mind though to like go on Spotify and like listen to the soundtrack. I was just like, that was just phenomenal in terms of like the acting. And I liked it because there was a lot of like just regular dialogue in between the musical numbers. And so it helped me understand what was happening in the story. So I didn't feel lost. So that was my experience coming in. So I was like, well, maybe this movie will be good. Like the musical at least is a good start. I feel like there's strong, stuff to work with, and it's pretty universal in terms of its themes, especially around the like awkwardness that is high school and trying to be liked and all of the sort of, weird social, not weird, like, uncomfortable social dynamics that occur in high school that this show focuses on. And so I thought, okay, there's something here that I think they can work with. The Ariana Grande casting made me question it, because I was like, well, is she going to be good? Like, I haven't seen her act in anything. I know she's done like
weird.
Disney stuff from a long time ago.
She's like a theater kid though. Like her whole career has been acting and music. Like to me.
Yeah, but she hasn't done
like
the acting thing in a long time. I mean, she's 30 something now, I think, and so
she's been doing that since she was a kid though. Like she literally as a youngin, she was doing music. Like her acting career was before her music. So like
yeah, but the acting was Disney Channel acting, right? Like there aren't not everybody who does Disney Channel acting or Nickelodeon or whatever she was on. Then
sorry, it's not Juilliard, Wes.
graduates to like epic blockbuster movies and can carry it as one of the leads. Like that's all.
I don't know. I think I think the Disney kids are perfect for play stuff like this. Like honestly, they're trained at a young age to be able to do comedy, acting, and music all in one. Obviously, you still got to be good at it, but in my mind,
we can talk about it.
Yeah, we'll get into it because I had a question
It gave
for
me
that.
pause. I was like, like we could have chosen an actress who's been working as an actor. Obviously she's still a performer, and so there's a good foundation there. But yeah. So that's that. The musicals, though, obviously you could tell from our conversations, can be a bit
we are
like
the target audience, aren't we?
Yeah, can be a bit like you're in or you're out on musicals just in general, and sort of you just know like how Savon is anti-black and white movies. Like some people are just like, no, I'm not doing musicals, like period, point blank. I can't do it. Like I'll go see a stage regular show, like a play, but I'm not going to see, or they'll see like, I'm not doing Shakespeare. But musicals sometimes fall into that genre for people. Is anybody totally in or totally out on musicals? Like I used to be pretty out on musicals, and now I'm like, you couldn't make it work for me if it's the right show. Albert, are you in or out on musicals, or are you kind of in the middle?
I'm kind of in the middle. You highly recommended Hamilton to me, and I tried watching it on Apple TV, and I was like, oh, this is really, really cool, really modern. They're rapping, but I couldn't finish it. It was so tiring because it's super hard to follow a story, like you said.
That whole show is all music. There's very little dialogue.
I watched it halfway. I was like, I need to take a pause. I never went back to it, which I think is a discredit to it. But musicals can be hard.
Damn, Lin-Manuel Miranda is so tight right now. What?
Brian, it sounds like you're okay with musicals.
I'm okay with it, but it's probably one of my least favorite mediums out there. Like the whole song and dance thing to tell some people breaking out into song and dance is like so ridiculous and absurd. And partially part of it is the music that is used in musical theater, which is unlike any music that we consume regularly outside of said theaters, right? Like it's its own genre, and it's super corny, super like generic, has no soul to it for the most part, right? And really, like, again, it's just kind of like speaking to its own internal audience, which kind of turns me off. I'd much rather go see a solid play or some other type of theater production than musicals. But as I said, I have been subjected to a lot of them, and I can recognize when something is good versus being mediocre or just bad.
Do you got a play, like a regular non-musical play that you would recommend folks go see if they're ever like, if it's still showing?
I mean, you said it, Shakespeare, man. Some
Yeah.
of those Shakespeare plays, they effing work till this day. Macbeth, I will always go see a Macbeth. Hamlet, same thing. Those are always great. Twelfth Night, always great. Like, for sure.
We got a chance to go to London a few years ago, and we saw The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime.
Oh, I heard that was cool.
That was so
It
good.
was a sci-fi production, wasn't it?
It didn't feel very sci-fi. It felt very, yeah, I mean a little bit, but it didn't feel very sci-fi. It was just like really well done, and the acting was really great in the show that we saw, and it pulled at your heartstrings for sure. So that's one I would recommend as like a stage show. I don't know if it's still playing. It may not be, but if you ever get a chance to see it, if it comes back, that's one you should hit up for sure. 10 out of 10 recommend on that one. Sav, are you in or out on musicals in general?
Out. I've been on this pod for years about my complaints. Similar to Brian, I recognize when they're good. I actually enjoy a good live play production. All the Broadway productions I've seen, like I've seen Color Purple, I've seen Lion King, I've deeply enjoyed those. So I appreciate a good on-stage production. But in terms of like a movie itself, I'm very turned off by it. The play, I can at least lock into like, this is a unique form of entertainment and media, so I can kind of like lock into that. But a movie, I just have my own ideas of what I enjoy from movies, and when half of it is people bursting out into song and dance.
Oh, what about like musicals though at the theater, like in front of you live?
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah, like I've seen The Color Purple and Lion King.
You're okay with those kind of? Okay.
Yeah, I've seen the live Broadway productions of those, and I love them. I do not like the movie
musicals that are turned into movies.
I don't like I will watch the Lion King play before I watch, frankly, the Lion King movie, because all the singing and shit is just like, I'm just like, when he says I just can't wait to be king, I'm like, all right, it's time for me to grab a drink. But similar to Brian, also like it's similar to horror for me too. Of just because I'm not a fan of the genre doesn't mean that I can't recognize when something is well put together, which is really the crux of how I felt about this movie once we talk more. But even in this movie, I was like, oh, okay, I can do without the singing and dancing. And my favorite part of the movie was definitely when there was a long gap between it, because they started singing. I was like, oh, that's right, this is a musical. Dang, I was having a good time when y'all stopped for a little bit.
Yeah.
But
all right. Well, spoilers are now incoming. That's enough foreplay. Brian, what were you gonna say?
I got a spoiler alert for Wesley, who messaged me on the side and was like, yo, can I get your login to the New York Public Library so that I can watch a recorded version of the Wicked stage production?
I wanted
My
to
man
go.
Wes is in.
I wanted to go see if how much they had changed from like the stage show to the movie.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to kind of see like what was different, because I actually don't remember a lot of the details of the stage production. So I was interested to see. I still am interested. So if you got a public login or a public library login, let me know. I want to.
Or you can support the play.
I can't support the play. I'm in Austin.
It's making $1 billion anyway. Whatever.
They're not showing it out here. All right. Let's get into the actual movie itself. Before we get into the movie, maybe this is just my feed, but I keep like liking people's renditions of like Wicked songs or whatever, and so I keep getting the interviews that the different people in the movie are making, like Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. They're often together in these, press little 5-minute interviews, and then the director is in his own interviews, and then two of the other, I think Jeff Goldblum and the guy that plays the guy are doing their interviews together. So they've been kind of insufferable and awesome, both together at the same time. So this movie, what stood out to you then? If you're not super into musicals, no one was super excited to see it. Albert, let's start with you. Don't tell us your final rating. Just like, what stood out to you? What did you enjoy? Where was its strong suit?
Before going to the movie, you did warn me like it's like part 1 of 3, and I was just like inside. I was like,
no, it's just part 1 of 2, I think.
Part 1 of 2.
Part 1 of 2.
Right, but part of me was
thank
like,
God. You said 3. I was like, what?
part of me was not looking forward to it, because I really hated when movies like Dune or something, they would split it. I'm not sure what it works about it in general. I think everything, like the humor, the acting, the set pieces, everything just worked together. I was having a good time. I think 10 minutes in, I was thinking like, oh, if this was actually 3 movies, I would be okay with it. It reminded me a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy in the sort of way, like it was humorous and it made me laugh, and I was just having a good time. So I really enjoyed it from that aspect. Yeah.
we talked about Guardians, made by James Gunn, written by James Gunn. Like, it was a movie that knew what it wanted to be all the way through.
Hmm.
And whether you like it or not, you can sort of like appreciate that aspect of it. So it sounds like that sort of, you appreciate that it had like one voice and one vision of what it wanted to be. It wasn't like the studio really messed with it and was like, this will test better.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Stav.
Honestly, similar thoughts. My big thing, and again, the musical hater, but I love a movie where it's clear that they put a lot of love and care into this. And some of this was from some behind the scenes stuff, because you're right? I didn't realize how popular this movie was going to be. I got bombarded with media stuff about it. So I
My
learned
social media is full of it right now.
Yeah, so I was learning just passively about how a lot of the singing they did themselves, and I even watched Ariana Grande's Hot Ones weeks ago and just realized this is what that looked like in the movie. And so the movie just, they put a lot of effort into it. The set pieces, the costume design, the makeup, the hair. It was just top tier, top quality. Everyone's going to talk about that amazing library scene where they make the most beautiful rotating library rig and then disrespect the hell out that entire library. And, and it felt, even the idea of all of that just stood out. The animal designs, just everybody's outfits, even background characters, every tiny detail in this movie, it was clear that someone, whether it was the set designer or whoever, was really giving it their all, and corners didn't feel cut. And that alone made me have a deep respect for the movie almost right out the gate. I was like, oh, okay, cool. They really putting their best foot forward. Okay, y'all care about this? All right, I'm gonna give y'all even more leeway of like, all right, I'm going with a more open mind. But that extremely well acted, just point blank period. It's a weird movie when I think Michelle Yeoh is the weakest actor in the movie, that's how I really feel. But that says something to the
Not a bad take.
But that says something to the everybody else in it, like Jonathan Bailey, just a heartthrob dude. Obviously, Cynthia, how do you say her last name, Wesley?
I think it's Erivo.
Cynthia Erivo was amazing, and then
I never heard of her.
Terrific. Yeah, I've heard of her in some stuff, and then not to say I was surprised, but I really enjoyed Ariana Grande. I've always known she had a theater background and was like, if you look at her resume, she's a good fit for this, but she was effing hilarious. And I love when non-comedic actors get to really show their funny side. Although she was funny in her Disney stuff too, but I feel like her image has definitely kind of moved away from that. And so I'm glad we got to re-see, hey, she's an actor. She's actually really funny.
Brian, did anything jump out to you as like, oh man, this was like really cool?
Oh, so you want me? Are you trying to lead me towards the cool track?
No, not at all. It's just wherever you want to go with that, sir.
What did you hate?
So this movie was made by John Chu, or directed by John Chu. Right? Yeah, I wanted to share his filmography with you for a second.
Okay.
So definitely, Crazy Rich Asians.
Okay.
Step Up 2, The Streets. Anyone? Step Up 3D. G.I. Joe Retaliation. I didn't even know there was a subtitle to some of these G.I. Joe movies. Gem and the Holograms, Now You See Me 2, In the Heights, and then Wicked and Wicked Part 2.
Oh, he did Into the Heights? In the Heights? In the Heights, which is another musical adaptation. Yeah.
Lin-Manuel Miranda. The stage production was pretty dope. I don't know about the movie. So like his track record, he's like mid-tier king, is he not? Like based on that mid-tier king, lots of dance related movies.
Directed DVD.
Rented, don't go to the theater, that sort of situation. That
disagree. I really enjoyed Crazy Rich Asians. I think that was a good one to see in theaters.
Total mid.
That was a mid movie?
That movie is like Buck's stereotypes by being mid. You know what I mean?
Dang. No, I just thought
by being a C+ student.
Dang, I thought the Asian community was going nuts over this. I thought they were rocking with it.
I feel like
they were rocking with it.
Yeah, the corny ones.
Wow.
I don't want to get caught in the middle of this.
Revoked.
Yo, you might catch a stray over here.
We're gonna put this to a vote. Is Brian's Asian card revoked? Raise your hand.
No way, man. No way. I'm the one that gives it out. But so anyway, he's got a dodgy reputation, and then Wicked, right? Albert said this. It's like 2 hours and 40 minutes. That is long. The length of the stage show by itself. So a part one is the same length as the entire show. right? So they're just like doubling the length of this thing. And then kind of like what you guys were saying, like this cast, like Ariana Grande, you know, from more being just like a sexy pop singer, at least in my mind. And you know, once I sit down and get into the movie and realize that it is kind of this crazy mashup between Mean Girls, Legally Blonde. Well, what else is thrown in there? I'm blanking. I had this thought of before. It's like Mean Girls, Legally Blonde. There's kind of like a there's kind of like a Scarlet Witch thing going on.
A little Harry Potter.
Harry Potter's the other one for sure.
There's some
And
good old
just
racism and bigotry.
and then just a sprinkling of Wizard of Oz, which it kind of sounds wild, but for whatever reason, it does work in the movie. It does become really entertaining. Like even music aside, right? Like I was kind of into the world that they inhabited and its antics. You know, you mentioned the set design was pretty cool, and also, you know, just how kind of over the top everybody was behaving. Aside from I would argue Cynthia Erivo, who plays her role as Elphaba, you know, as most naturalistically as she possibly could to offset everybody else's extraness. Right, like Ariana Grande is being like super extra for hilarious effect, and then it works well with Elphaba being playing the straight man in that combo.
Like Jeff Goldblum gonna be extra.
Yeah. Of course. And then Michelle Yeoh kind of does her villain turn thing, which felt very MCU like, to be honest. And a lot
that
of
felt like that felt like the only real studio outside person, and maybe that happens in the play, so obviously that's probably not the case with a plot, but
yeah,
like,
it was from the play.
that was to me by far the weakest part of the movie. It didn't take away from it, but I was just like, I guess.
All right. So it worked for you, Brian, for the most part.
It was
putting it together.
I was very surprised at how invested I became watching the movie.
Yeah, I think big time shout out to Cynthia Erivo. Like, her singing was phenomenal. And I know they talked in the after kind of stuff about how a lot of it's done live or recordings spliced together from live takes. And that's just incredible. Like, there's a ton of movement that all of those actors are doing on stage. There's a ton of choreography. And speaking of choreography, that choreography in one of the early scenes with Ariana Grande, where she's like walking through the middle of the school and doing, I don't know, some weird thing with the book, and like her friends are with the book and they're kind of in a triangle formation. That was like incredible. The library scene, I think you're right, was also really cool and just inventive, right? Like I don't know that I've seen stuff like that before on screen, and certainly that'd be really hard to pull off on stage, but a good use of like height, right? Like they're putting people in different places on the screen, so it's not just one flat stage, you know, which was good use of the medium. You could do that with with the movie. So I think a ton of good stuff. And me having misgivings about Ariana Grande, I thought the way that they used her was really smart, right? Like they used her as kind of this like ditzy, overly, you know, kind of like the beginning of Schitt's Creek, the early, what is her name, Alexis in the show? Have you guys seen Schitt's Creek?
Yeah, I've seen a couple episodes.
All right. Well, the sister in the show kind of plays this like ditzy, airhead, like super rich girl. Not mean, just, you know, just kind of unaware of the real world. And that's kind of how they play Ariana Grande, just like way over the top. And it works. And she does a phenomenal job. Like every time her hair flipped, I thought this is going to get old. And then I just laughed again every single time that she did it. So, you know, good for them on that. But yeah, I think you got to come back to Elphaba's performance. Just like at times vulnerable and then strong and then angry and then back to vulnerable and broken, and the wide range that she was able to pull off and make all of it feel one character. And I don't know, I was totally invested in her performance and her take on that. And
so
I
Wes,
yeah,
I gotta know, did she make you cry?
Oh, I did not cry. I did not cry, but I felt all those moments, especially in the dance scene, right, in the club that they go to, the loneliness and sadness that she's feeling, and like complete like, oh damn, like I really just got set up here. Like you could feel that, and they made a super interesting choice, I think, and probably the only choice you make is like there was no background music. They turned up all the ambient noise to 11, and so you're hearing little tiny movements of people's like feet shifting, their clothes shifting, like it felt like you could hear them blink. I mean, like they turned off all the sound in the theater and turned up like every single small noise in that scene just to make it feel like you were you were in her shoes and you could hear, when you're nervous, right? Like in your center of attention, you hear and feel everything. And like, you're like, oh my God, this is, terrifying. So what a cool choice to do that. I think that's a scene that's not in the original stage play and helps a little bit with the transition between being enemies to being friends-ish. And I do want to talk about that more in terms of their dynamic and then in terms of things I didn't like. But yeah, it was that. Those were my highlights. I don't know. Does anybody want to talk about any more highlights before we get into maybe things we're like,
I do love that dance that they do together. It's
Did you
super
love it?
bizarre.
It's so bizarre.
It's bizarre. I have no understanding as to why she even starts doing that. But that's gonna be a thing. I'm gonna break that out next time I go to a party. It's coming out. I'm doing the Elfie.
Not to a dance session. You're doing it at the party.
I'm doing it at the party, live rounds. It's coming out. I'm gonna do some chicken wing action. I don't know what that was all about.
Yeah, I wish that was grounded in something that came before, but it was interesting that that's what happened.
Yeah, I think it's probably just a defense mechanism moment for her because, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the plot at all? Was there anything that was surprising to you about the plot? Like, I mean, we could talk about sort of the twist a little bit, right? That happened kind of in the middle. Sav, did you want to talk about how that landed for you?
Yeah, so my big thing with the plot, which I really enjoyed for this movie, was, and then I realized why I enjoyed the plot so damn much when I started reading about the movie after I had seen it and learned it's based off a series of books that have a very mature and serious tone. So the source material, because I didn't know it was based off a novel, so once I started reading about the novel, I'm like, this novel is not like a children's book. It's a much more adult reanimation. It's more about the radicalization. Like, it goes deeper into these themes of being radicalized, being an enemy of the state, all the things that like we see in this movie. And I'm like, if this is your source material, then you had the skeleton of a really good story from the Mount in terms of tone, in terms of character motivations. Because I didn't know it, because I just thought, okay, Wicked, it's about the witch. Is she the bad guy? I'm like, I feel like that'd be a little too obvious. The green skin witch is the villain. There must be more going on. And then obviously that ended up being the case. But yeah, they have really strong source material to build out a strong story. So it lets you take what's traditionally a children's story that's pretty cut and dry and explore some really serious themes. Like I didn't expect a subplot about animals being discriminated against and, the stuff with the teacher not being heard and Glenda being a complete ass about the teacher's accent and like stuff that was like, yo, this movie is hitting way heavier than I expected it to for what it is, Even just the moments where the green skin, even though it's not a direct allegory for like racism in terms of being a black woman, it's not lost on me that the character Elphaba, played by a dark-skinned black woman, one of her big things is her battle with like her appearance. Like it's pretty obvious, right? But it was way better executed than I thought, and the plot and the maturity of the plot and the seriousness of its themes balanced out with the kookiness of its characters was way better than I expected and caught me off guard. I thought the story was going to be mid at best. The story is probably one of my favorite parts.
I saw something else that the stage show, which was written, I think, or at least the music was written by, what's his name? Steven Schwartzman or something like that. I think I saw something on social media that he's Jewish and that Idina Menzel was cast to be Elphaba, and she's also Jewish. And so there's also that otherness that original stage production had sort of as an undertone, right? It's not that it had to be like said out loud, but I think there was an identification there as well of kind of a group that has been obviously othered and not sort of respected, right, and left out of certain circles. So cool that
also,
that sort of
also the author is gay. The author of Wicked is like a gay man.
Yeah.
Like, it's not subtle. It's not surprising that there's lots of these themes that come in knowing the author's background that touches on themes of being othered, nature versus nurture, right? The way you're born versus were you born this way, other factors being accepted. Like, it's not, when you think about it in hindsight, like, oh, this makes sense when the author is like a gay man in the 90s. That part kind of adds up, and it creates a character who their struggle can be very transferable depending on the context in which you're modernizing the story, right? Because there's lots of marginalized groups that could fit into that Elphaba role, which they did really well and very tastefully.
And most importantly, this idea of not fitting in high school is
Was this high school? This felt
very
like a
well
college to
tread,
me.
right? Like a lot of people can relate to that. So even if you don't relate to being a gay man or being Jewish, you certainly can relate to that part of it. All right, let's get into our two main characters. So Elphaba and Glinda, or Galinda, as they start in the beginning, and then, or you can talk about the two performances by the actresses, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. We mentioned it a little bit. Albert, did you enjoy their dynamic together on screen?
Yeah, it works really well. I guess you guys, especially Brian, talked about it, how like Cynthia was a straight man and Ariana was just super campy, super extra. Never did I feel like they went over. In fact, they kept on reusing the same joke with their hair. It really worked out really well for me. Yeah.
Nice. Sav, did you like how they ended up fitting together in their moments?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't think that Cynthia or Elphaba as like the straight man character, I didn't know what to expect from her character in the movie. I thought she might have actually been a bit more animated and kind of over the top just because of her appearance, but I didn't think her chill demeanor would actually be so really cool. But yeah, the chemistry those two had was top tier, you know. Elphaba, played by Cynthia, just being so calm and collected, but then having her emotional outburst moments. Again, Ariana Grande really showing her roots and turning up the camp. Like, Wes, I know this is more of a generation gap maybe for everybody here, but there was like a late 2000s, I'm serious, a late 2000s Nickelodeon show called Victorious that starred Victoria Justice, who was then like a Nickelodeon star, and it took place at a performing arts school, funny enough. And Ariana Grande, that was where she got her start as a side character who played a ditzy, rich, kind of spoiled. Like, it's one of those, if you know the roots of when she kind of started to pop off before her music career, it makes sense of like, actually, she's kind of played characters like this before in her teenage years, 15 years ago or whatever. So it's cool to see her slide back into that very naturally, and her emoting. Yeah, just those two on screen were just my favorite part of the movie. Every time watching them fight, the part where they're doing the song and it's like, wait, this isn't a love song. I'm like, oh, this is a hate song. And they just both go into the hate, and I'm like, yeah, I'm really here for this. And lastly, I love that they did an amazing job of this. Again, I don't care about the series that much, but dang, everything from the Wicked Witch, or who we know as the Wicked Witch, and all her back stuff is so tied to Glinda in a way that's so profoundly sad. You see the witch with all black, the hat, the cape, the broom, and you're thinking, oh man, what a jerk. And you're like, dude, the broom, the cape, the hat, all of that is so tied deeply to her, like, actual growing up. Like, the hat is the first nice thing someone ever did for her, and it was an actual slight. But I don't know, I just love their relationship. I could watch an entire show just on those two being roommates. Like, I could watch a show on just them having to live together and become friends by the end of the second season.
I could watch that too, yeah.
Brian, what did you think about them together?
Yeah, Loling was a high point, and I enjoyed them jabbing each other constantly. Ariana trying to take over the space, and Elphaba doing the opposite, and yes, you're right. The clothes are such a key thing here, right? Like the hat, the cape, the broom, all come from Glinda. But they also flash the ruby red slippers.
I peeked them joints. I was like,
as well as the other shoes. So you kind of know what's gonna happen in part 2 with Elphaba's sister. Like, and you kind of like, oh yeah, I get why she turns into somebody who's very angry and wants to avenge somebody by the time the Wizard of Oz happens. But beyond that, I think part of the relationship that I really enjoyed was that when they start becoming friends, they don't just do a full 180 and suddenly they are friends who, they're BFFs and they just love each other and do everything that a good friend should do. There's still the frenemy aspect of it that comes through. For Glinda, she is still trying to make over, she's still trying to make over Elphaba. She's still trying to kind of like, in her absent-minded way, change this person for what she thinks is the better, right? And of course, like, you wouldn't want a real friend to do that. But I think that dynamic still means something for their relationship, right? Like, there's still this kind of like superior inferior dynamic that's happening. And then of course from Elphaba's side, she's also just trying to figure out, like, I hate this girl, but she did something nice for me. Maybe I trust her, but I'm in love with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend is actually in love with me, and I'm actually the better one. What does this all mean? Like, do I want this person to support me now that I'm being persecuted, or do I want them to go and live the life that they want, that they think is best for them? So a lot of shades of gray that I think help make that relationship richer and also make for a better tale being told, right? There's more conflict at hand. And I think hopefully by the time we reach the end of part 2, we get why Glinda is like, yeah, I sort of knew her, right? And
Dirty.
I'm sure there's going to be, and Wes, you already know, I'm sure there's going to be some dramatic fallout that will feel feel satisfying for the type of story that they're setting us up for in this part 1.
Yeah, what a heartbreaking moment where she's like, "Come with me," right? And she's like, "I can't. Like, that's not my path." I have a hard disagree on this one. So, and this is something I think I've heard. This is something Jen mentioned, and my sister Alexa saw the movie this week, also mentioned it. And I think we're all kind of on the same page that the turn from enemy, or at least like rivals, to was jarring for us. Like, I did not think that they earned that Ariana Grande didn't have a true moment of vulnerability or reckoning for like what she did. Like, Linda didn't have to, and to be fair, like, maybe before the hat thing, she actually, maybe, I think Albert pointed this out, hadn't really done anything too terrible. It was all like annoying stuff. It was all like just childish, just like, we're not friends. But she wasn't like making an effort to go out of her way to like make Elphaba's life difficult. At the same time, except like putting the clothes up, right? But
She was
it
bullying her in classes too and egging
a little bit,
it on.
right? And it just never felt like Ariana was nice to her ever, or Glinda was nice to her ever. And then she does this thing that's really mean, right? Like, she knows the culture of the school way better than Elphaba does. And she does this thing to set her up with this like, ugly hat that is going to make people laugh and stare at her, which in high school is mortifying, or college, or whatever stage they're in. Like, that's just a really terrible thing to do to somebody who doesn't know any better, right? And is thinking you're being nice, and you had just done something nice for them. Like, all of this stuff was mean. It was just like plain and simple, like, mean stuff, because she was insecure, because she was feeling bad about herself and wanted somebody else to suffer. And although, and I think this moment where they have that weird dance with the chicken wing and everything, like, that was her way of atoning. I still don't think if you're a real person in Elphaba's shoes, that you're forgiving them to the point where, like, that night you're staying up late and laughing and dancing in your room together. To me, that did not. Brian said it didn't felt like it was a 180. To me, that felt like 100% a 180 that wasn't earned, and didn't ask Linda to really actually express like what was going on with her and why she did it. It let her get away with like, okay, I'm going to do this embarrassing dance and use my social capital to save you because I felt bad about it and guilty about it. But that was just to assuage her own guilt. It wasn't to actually support Elphaba, in that moment. And so I think, and I don't know if this is a problem with the stage show as well, but I wish there was something more where it's like, even when they talk about their parents, like, Elphaba talks about how like she's outcast from her own family, how her dad hates her for like basically like taking her mother away and all this stuff. And Glinda doesn't respond with anything at all that's actually meaningful. And she calls her on it, but it was like, like, that's not the same. Like, you didn't actually invest in this friendship. So I don't know, Sav, you're disagreeing, but to me, that was the one thing that I didn't love about the movie, and thought it ended up being a weakness, because a lot of the movie hinges on you believing that Glinda has had some change of heart really about her in a way, and that Elphaba would accept it, right? And I think, yes, Glinda had some change of heart, but I don't think she did enough that a real Elphaba person would have accepted that change. Sav?
I mean, this is just one of those, I feel like we're skipping over key things that did address those things
Okay.
you're asking about. Like, I guess in my mind,
Tell me, sir.
I guess in my mind, Glinda literally had that conversation with the Dean of Sorcery, who breaks down, "Hey, I don't like you," and really tears her down and gives her the biggest ego check she had of the entire movie, made her recognize that Glinda isn't cruel and that Glinda went out of her way to do something nice because of a perceived kindness. Like, that alone, I thought was a bunch of development for Glinda, of just looking beyond herself, having to get set straight and realize, hey man, you're being a jerk. To your point, trying to come in and be supportive, but I thought the friendship development was through her recognizing she was wrong, her helping her in a social situation. Yes, they have the conversation and reveal the secrets, but you're forgetting the most important part of Glinda being the one to tell Elphaba, it's not your fault this awful shit happened. Elphaba's carrying the guilt of all these awful things, of her mom being dead and her sister being, in a wheelchair, directly on her. And literally, Glinda's the only person in the movie who says, hey, bruh, that's just wrong. In fact, she had one of the best lines of the movie, in my opinion, of, just because it's your secret doesn't mean that it's true. And I thought that was amazing, of like, you're holding on to this and all that, but just because it's important to you doesn't mean that that's what's actually the reality of your situation. And for a character who's kind of a ditzy, socially unaware dumbass, that was probably the biggest gem. That was probably the best gem that she could have dropped in the movie. Even the makeover scene, which at first, to be honest, I didn't like it because I thought she was trying to change who Elfie is. And her big thing in the movie, even at the end, is like, that's actually not a big deal to me. Even she's like, you know what? I'm going to just give you a flower. And that was like, well, just did all that dance and all that to end up with just a flower. But I thought that was a genuine moment of, I'm trying to help you, but sometimes less is more. I thought all of that totally felt like their friendship dynamic. There were clear things to show a change of heart in the dynamic. And it's worth noting that the dynamic isn't over. We still have a whole nother movie to explore. Maybe there are things that weren't fully, in fact, I know for a fact there are things that weren't addressed, like that bottle that she had under the pillow. They never addressed that. Clearly they're going to talk more about that in the next movie. So I think it's a blend of, they did give Glinda moments to show that she was actually not as big of a jerk as she was always being, and had moments to grow, and they teed us up for more of that to happen down the line. But
you set me up. If you shit in my Cheerios, just because you take the poop out of the Cheerios doesn't
Wes,
make me like you anymore.
And also, Wes, straight up, it's a movie. This movie's biggest flaw is already that it was too damn long. We don't need another 20 minutes to try and reinforce, are they cool or not. It's a movie, pimp. Like, if every movie, I would argue almost every damn work of fiction, if you look at it from the lens of you yourself, pretty much every movie, if you want to have drama, people are going to do awful shit that real life people probably wouldn't forgive. Like, some of that is just
I'm going to still disagree, but I hear you.
One, definitely co-sign Savon. Thank you for putting down that block on this hot garbage that Wes is trying to lay up.
I'm saying, am I tripping? No, I feel like that's...
Also, Wes, you cannot adapt your own personal needs to these fictional characters who don't behave the way that you behave. You know what I mean? Like Elphaba is somebody who's thirsting for friends. She wants connection. She has had none her entire life. She wants it. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you pooped in her cereal. You took out the poop. Like, she wants that. Poop. That's the only thing she wanted. And then Glinda is dumb, man. She is dumb.
Elfie even knows that she's dumb. That's why half the time Elfie just be making faces like, this is just my dumb friend, and I just gotta let her live.
But I like it. Yes. Exactly. Right. And that's what makes it work.
Okay. Albert?
I can see it. I think there's just social credit imbalance, but yeah, I think it's a movie. Probably don't want to run it too long a little bit. The flow might get disrupted. Like, Glinda needs to prove herself more and more.
You're sleeping on the couch today, Albert. All right. I thought you were going to have my back.
You were just ignoring entire scenes.
No, I was not. It didn't feel like they earned it. I'll stand by that. I'm with Alexis on that one.
Hey man, you know the name of the show?
My sister was like, I do think it's she thought it was a big deal because she was like, I really think the whole second half or like later part of the movie depends on you believing that Elphaba is into this. So if that doesn't work, then it does matter. I don't know if other people feel this way or if most people are with your camp that it's like, hey, like I bought it, they were good. Like, and it wasn't 100% like we're like best friends forever. Like, okay, I could see that.
So here's one of the biggest flaws of
Okay.
musicals
Yeah.
out there is that the very fact that they tell stories through the music means that none of it ever gets resolved properly as it would in other works
In a
of fiction
dramatic-
or in
yeah.
a normal way, right?
Mhm.
Like, almost every single musical I've ever seen, I always walk away feeling like, well, how do we arrive at that resolution all of a sudden?
Kind of glossed over it
Like,
through the song.
they just move through that thing quick because they want to, because the prioritization and what they're creating is the music itself,
Gotcha.
right? And the set pieces. So it's kind of like, okay, I guess we got to go with it. But I mean, I hear you that some of these things don't work, and partially I do think it's the genre that is working here.
I agree.
I did like the nuance of her pining for Fiyero and acknowledging in the song that, like, actually, I think maybe I have to let this one go because you guys are happy together. And she can, like, be sad for herself and also not want to mess things up for her friend, right? Who's there. And I think that was a good example of a song where it's like, I'm acknowledging the different complexity that's going on here. So shout out to them on that one.
What you're asking for is that they had introduced a whole new song for Alphaba and Glinda to be like, you were so mean to me, but I didn't really mean it.
It's a director's cut.
It's out there, man. It's out there.
I'm not opposed to that.
I mean,
It could have been a speaking part. It could have been a speaking part. All right, let's keep it going. Let's see here. So, do you have someone in your life who maybe at one time you considered a little bit of an enemy or a rival, and now you're like, either we're no longer enemies, or you would like to convert them and become maybe closer to them or friends with them? Is there someone in your life who gives you the former enemy, current friend vibes? Albert, what do you think? Is there someone in your life where you're like, I couldn't be friends with them before, but now I'm kind of, willing to give that a chance? I would love to be friends with that person now. Maybe they're rich. I don't know.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna hijack this because I actually nothing comes to mind, but I wanted to go back a little bit and just one thing that came to my mind when we were discussing this, which is one thing I really liked about the movie was, to date, I don't know if any other movie made me hate a villain as much as Wicked did without introducing a backstory. Like, it was done really nicely. Like, the whole time they didn't show the wizard or talk about the wizard or where he came from. And even when he introduced himself, he didn't need to talk about it. But the whole time I was just thinking like, oh, I really hate the wizard now, even without his backstory. It was basically just he was a con man. He got everyone to rally up behind this idea of like hating a common enemy, putting them like caged up and stuff like that. So I just thought that movie did it really well. Yeah. But to answer your question, I can't think of anything that comes to mind.
Yeah, he really pulled the, like, Ronald Reagan, like, and the old like let them
Yes.
fight amongst themselves.
That's a deep pull. That boy making Reagan references in our Lord's year 2024. Hey, we don't do that. We do Trumpism in these parts.
It's more relevant, yeah.
No subtlety with making
And
a
the
common
sugarcane
enemy.
farmers and plantation owners in Hawaii also did the same thing, but that's for another day.
Reagan ran on "Make America Great Again." Let it be known. That was his slogan.
All right, Brian, you got an enemy who you
I
need
got
to make
an
a friend?
enemy. I got an enemy that might be a friend of me these days, and that is enemy number one. The first enemy I ever knew, my older sister Bridget. Oh my God. What a harsh person to me growing up. Just always a villain.
How much older is she than you?
2 years older.
Oh,
she's the one I'm closest in age to. We shared a room for many a year.
Nice. But she was older, so she clearly like dominated the room and got everything
definitely
her
dominated
way.
the room. Yeah. I remember being a little kid. Obviously she hit puberty before I did. I remember being a little kid and like jumping in her bed and wanting to play and stuff. She'd be like, "Ew, you better get away from me or else I'm gonna bleed on you." And I was like, "What the fuck? What are you talking about? That's crazy-ish." And then like a few years later, I remember she was like, I'm going through puberty, and she, her friend was over at the house and they were like giggling, and then they would like turn to me and ask me, "Hey, Brian, so what does a boner feel like? A frozen sausage?" It's like, what are you talking about? I've never experienced a boner before. Don't bring that up.
Meanwhile, he has a
Run
boner all the time.
away! Run away!
Frozen sausages for everyone.
My God, she's what a tormentor! What a tormentor! And of course, I dished it back at times.
Hell yeah.
In a way that a boy does, probably a little too violently.
Because you farted on her stuff.
Absolutely.
We crop dusting that whole room, baby.
Some of those stuffed animals going straight to the toilet. But apparently we're still family. So we gotta be friends when we see each other.
Nice. Is she the one with kids?
Yeah, she's the one with kids. She's
nice.
the
Well,
one with
they can be your bridge, right? You like hanging out with them for the most part.
They also love tormenting me.
Oh,
so
no.
I guess that's the bridge. That's the
Okay,
bridge.
well, yeah, it's a common enemy.
circle.
You guys now have a common
Yeah.
enemy.
Oh, she's the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been gone.
My former enemy was cauliflower and Brussels sprouts.
What?
Those vegetables used to be so bad. I used to gag eating both of those vegetables as a kid, and my parents would be like, you got to eat them, and I would hate it, and I would just like plug my nose and try and eat it, and like the amount of gagging I did over Brussels sprouts as a kid is inhumane. I say that. Eileen and Gordon, that was not nice.
Wes,
It
you
just
just
sounds
pulled
like
a Glindo, man. I just bared my soul of my traumatic childhood, and you're like,
veggies eating
I
growing
know,
up.
that was such a privilege
I hate
life.
cruciferous veggies.
Biggest thing was vegetables.
But now I have made friends with them. I roast them now. I put salt and garlic salt or garlic powder, and then some pepper, like black pepper. Put some olive oil, toss them up, and then put them on a baking sheet. 410 degrees or so, maybe
Like one-sided friendship.
415.
This is the only podcast
Yo,
where we talk
just
about
keeps
all this
going.
other shit, and then
He just keeps going.
Wes with legit, honest to goodness enthusiasm. Like he really mean that
we're
shit.
not friends.
It's like,
I don't even
yo,
eat honey.
when I was a kid, I hated my veggies. Now as an adult, I love my veggies.
No, I don't hate all
And he's
veggies.
not
Let's be
doing
clear.
a bit. And he's not, y'all, audience.
I
He's
like
not
broccoli.
doing a bit.
Green beans, I'm into it, but
Oh my God.
Brussels
It's not-
sprouts and cauliflower.
It's
He's
not
just
a
gonna
bit,
keep
people.
going.
It's amazing. It's actually amazing.
Friends
wait.
to enemies. It's a comeback story that no one saw coming.
Wes,
Mine-
you're a teacher. If you saw this as an answer to your question, would you accept it? Would
Yes.
you accept it?
Yes.
Oh.
Damn, man.
Only
Albert
because
was
he
sleeping
plays
outside.
favorites with his students.
Now you're
Someone
sleeping outside.
Some of the answers Wes be giving us, I'm like, B, you a teacher. I'm gonna need you to hold yourself to a higher standard.
No one wants
No.
to hear about people I've forgotten about, but I can tell you about Brussels sprouts and how you.
God forbid, I'd rather you hear about that than kids not liking vegetables.
you know.
No. I was just gonna say, true to form though. These past few days, I saw Wesley grilling up Brussels sprouts and cauliflower. So he's not joking at all. He's
And they were
eating
good.
them.
And he was embracing each one.
Yeah. Best friends.
Besties.
That's the best part. I don't think Wes does bits. He might
I
do
don't
the
have
least
bits.
bits. He might do the least bits of friends I know, and yet it feels like he's doing a continuous bit. On that note of
I
that
hate
question,
you all. What is this?
on that note of that question,
This is your podcast.
Wes, it might be you, bro. You have
We're
one.
supposed to be roasting Brussels sprouts, not roasting Wesley. What is
I can
Stop
roast
it.
both. I got a big oven. Wes, honestly, it might be you, pimp. You have one of the most. I have one of the most interesting dynamics with you of friends I've had over my life because you're smart, you're hardworking, attention detailed, have morals. I love you to death, and then you just be saying and doing shit that makes me want to just throw a brick at you. And I feel like that has just defined our relationship over the years. Where there's moments where I'm like, Wes, you're awesome. Thank you. You're a good friend and a true resource. You're a good man making the world better. And then other moments where I'm like, I can't be friends with this motherfucker. I'm like, why did he say what he like? What is going on? Is Wes trolling me on purpose right now? I don't know. It's weird,
I
man.
can't
Definitely
even
not.
tell at this point. I have no idea.
It's weird. One moment, Wes will give me amazing life advice on updating my resume so I can get a better job and advance my life career and actually improve my living situation. And then the next moment, we're playing a video game with instructions on the screen, and he's saying, "I don't know what button to press." And man, if that ain't the duality of friendship, Wes. So just know I love you, but I oscillate.
It's almost
heavily
never a
back
bit,
and forth
Tab.
between hating you.
It's
I
almost
think we
never a
have-
bit, unless it's me talking about the Lakers, in which case half of the time it's
Oh
just to
my
get a
God.
rise out of you.
Yeah, I get it. But that's a bit that I don't care. I'm gonna be the rage Laker person in response. I don't give a damn. But yeah, Wes, I think you and I might have the closest thing to a Glinda Alpha relationship. I feel like there's some shades of that on both sides. Savon, you don't have to be such a dry dick about this. Wes, you read the shit or pay attention.
Fair enough.
Love you, bro.
You guys know I don't enjoy, or I have not in the past enjoyed, when they do a part one that doesn't resolve, and they don't announce
Did you
it
throw
ahead
your
of time.
popcorn at the screen?
No,
Right when the movie popped up, Wicked. Because when I saw part one, I was like, part one? I ain't gonna lie. I didn't know it was a part. I was a
I didn't
two-parter.
either.
until
It's
I
not
saw
in the
title
marketing.
card.
Wes was about to leave the theater.
No.
I ain't gonna lie. I was a little mad too. I was like, this a
Okay.
bitch.
Yeah. Part one. Okay, but I don't like that they don't put part one on the like movie posters. Like, it's not in the commercials. It's not in the movie poster. It's not when you buy your tickets. It doesn't say Wicked Part One. Like, I found out through social media, which, like, thank fucking God that somebody spoiled that part of the movie and was like, this is part one. And I was like, oh, this is part one. And then I'm okay. Like, it sets my expectations a little bit. But like, the real reason I got so mad at Dune Part One and with
Spider-Man.
Across the Spider-Verse was I didn't know, and it wasn't part of the marketing, that there was going to be a second thing and it was going to be sort of cut off. I got more to say on the part one thing. Did that throw any of you off that this ended up being a part one? And are you okay with it? Albert, how do you feel about it? I mean, it sounds like you're okay with it because you're like, I'll see part two and part three.
Oh gosh, Dune. I have so much hatred for Dune, but yeah,
What?
I do because like the movie's incomplete. Like the director didn't have the funding secured. He just gave us a crap that wouldn't resolve itself. Like if he couldn't make part two. I think with Wicked, I think it's the same thing. Good thing you told me about it. I was kind of like really bitter about going into it. It's like it feels like another Hobbit where they're milking it. What is it, Hobbit and the Dragon or something like that? And there's one book source material and you split it into three.
Same with the
Super
Harry Potter movies. They did it with the, that was like that 10 years ago-ish trend of every the finales were going to split in parts.
Right, but at least they had the courtesy then. It was like Deathly Hallows Part 1. They said it in the title, they said it in the movie poster, right. For Wicked, not a problem at all. I feel like the movie ended.
Same with Endgame. Or, no, Infinity War, right? We knew that was a part one of two in Infinity War as well.
Right,
yeah, but that had like a definitive conclusion to where
I would not say that at all. What?
Oh no, I thought that was like I don't know.
They turn to dust and then the movie ends.
Yeah,
that would be awesome if that was just the conclusion. MCU over.
Yeah,
25 movies later, like okay.
Yeah.
I disagree on that one,
I'll
but
give
let's
my
keep
2
going.
cents on the parts, but keep talking, Albert.
All right.
No, I feel like if Wicked Part 1 of 1, just like it ended there, I would have been fine with it. If I don't see Part 2, I would be like, all right, I feel like the story concluded, other than the animals' unrest or uprising or being muted or whatever. That little part was kind of, I actually didn't remember, but I went back and looked it up. It was in the musical and it's in the book, but for some reason I felt like, I feel like they're adding that into the movie just as a subplot to expand on it later on in part 2, so it's like filler, it's unneeded. But yeah, it was in a musical, so I'm not sure how they're gonna resolve that. But if Wicked just ended here, I think it would have been okay.
Okay, so it didn't. The part one, part two is not throwing you off here. Just the
Not
fact
as
that
much-
it wasn't told us ahead of time.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
as much as Dune or Spider-Verse, but Spider-Verse I actually had a heads up too, so I was actually okay with it. But it went back to like I was enjoying it.
Limitations
So
are everything in this. Like, if you're gonna do this and cut the story out, like, you got to tell people. I think that's, I don't know. That's what I think. Sav made the argument that then people wouldn't go see it, and I was like, that's a bait and switch then, because I'm not about that. All right, Sav, part one. Did you know going in that it was a part one? Did I tell you that it was a part
I didn't know
one?
at all. I didn't know until
Okay.
I was in the theater. I saw the title card, but
Yeah.
honestly, I get
And that kind of like
the,
that sent you for a minute.
it was just more of like I'm surprised. Like I just thought this was gonna be I watched
what I
this,
thought.
the story's concluded. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't really. That was just like okay. And then my thoughts in was cool. At that point, like for me, I don't care about getting a heads up about the part 1, part 2, because even like stories that are standalone will have a cliffhanger that opens it up for a sequel, and I don't really think that's as drastically different. Even movies that are meant to be standalone will leave a little thread hanging. For me, it's less about the whether I know ahead of time. It's more about the how did you actually cut the story up pacing wise. If it doesn't feel jarring in terms of pacing or where you were in the story, I legit don't care because I'm like, all right, cool. To me, it's not that much different than waiting for a sequel.
You do have the
like,
patience of a saint. You'll
like,
go years without watching
but
something,
but if it's a
and you're fine with
genuine,
it.
but to me, waiting
He'll go
a
to his
year,
grave without watching something.
yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just the are you chopping it up? Are you splitting it in a way that makes sense narratively? Does it make the story feel weird? Was the story so big that it needed to be cut up in the first place? Like the necessity of it? Like those are all things that I care about more. Like when I was reading about Wicked, apparently part 2, they're gonna have to stretch it out because apparently it was really, really like thin and kind of shallow, and they stretched it out. I don't care. I just need to have it be paced in a way that doesn't feel upsetting or like y'all left something on the table. To your point, Albert, Wicked might be part 1, but it could easily be its own standalone thing. And besides a few plot threads they're going to address in the sequel, this could be a solid standalone and it'd be fine. And I think that's a good sign of a part 1 rather than others where you feel screwed.
I 100% agree. I think where this one ended, you could stop it here and go into Wizard of Oz and be like, I got it. Like, I understand how this is different and it feels good. And so I had no problem with this one being a part 1. By the time that I got to the end of it, I was like, they did wrap it up enough for me to understand this is the arc of the character. The people had their character arcs kind of fulfilled. And so I am totally on board with that. And I agree with what Sav said. So part 1 did not bother me at all here. Albert?
Oh, I just want to say, I feel like we should hold movie production companies more accountable, though, because I feel like we're getting conditioned where they do cliffhangers or they do sequels. They're like getting away with it. I feel like the movie medium format is something different. If you want to do something else, you should do like a serial TV show, or you should do a book instead. I feel like you should make a movie strong enough that it's a standalone. And if it ends there, you gave your audience, you respected their time, respected, I guess, in a sense, their money as well. You shouldn't leave these things where like, oh, here's a little cookie crumble. Maybe there's more. Just leave it there, I feel like.
Yeah. It should be by circumstance, not by design. Maybe is like if it's a story where it just has to be broken up because it's so large, that's one thing. If it's studios saying, "Hey, we want to get more bread for the same story," let's it's a difference between a big meal that requires different prepping sessions versus you taking a dog treat and snapping it in half so that the dog got so that the pet got 2 treats. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but you could have just gave us this whole treat. You breaking it up, acting like you giving us 2 treats. Hey, I see what you're doing. Stop holding out on us.
Brian, you got anything to add?
Who cares about this damn topic? How is this something we're talking about?
What, part 2s?
This is a West problem.
It's not a West problem. All right.
You're the only one worked up about this.
No, other people are too. It's not just me. I hear from other people. The streets, they're alive. All right. Final ratings. How would you rate this movie? I enjoyed it quite a bit. I don't think it was perfect, so I'm going something like maybe 8 or 9 out of 10. I really enjoy it. I think it's worth seeing. I think it's worth seeing in theaters because of the musical aspects of it and the just the visuals were so like, I don't want to use the word lush. I feel like that's overused, but they were just like, it was awesome to soak in just all of the different sets and things that they did. The costuming was awesome. So go see it. Highly recommend. I think almost everybody would enjoy it. I don't think there's very many people unless you're just totally out on musicals, like period, like morally opposed. Sav, what's your rating?
9 out of 10. Great movie. Lots of love. Well put together. I'm still not a musical fan, but some of the music was really, really good. My only real complaint was that the movie was probably 30 to 25 minutes too long.
Oh, that's a lot.
All right. Albert, rating?
1 higher, 9 to 10, 10 to 10. I feel like they made us fans of it, even though it was a musical.
10 witch hats from
9 to 10, 10 to 10. 8 out of 10, 9 to 10. You guys gotta like settle on a number, man.
It's hard.
I said 9.
All right, I'll go 9.
What about Brian?
All right, Brian.
I would say an 8 out of 10 witches hats.
Nice.
I think the story, like I said, I think the story is funny. If you like Legally Blonde, Mean Girls, Harry Potter, like Planet of the Apes, even
oh yeah,
the original Wizard of Oz. Yeah, of course you're gonna like this. I think it's super interesting. I mean, the musical aspect of it, I thought some songs are better than others.
Yeah.
I could actually imagine this being without music and still being an entertaining movie. But I also do think, John Chu's still kind of mid, if I'm being honest. Like, dude, get the camera out the way, man. You're actually making some of these good things worse by changing up all the camera angles in the movie. Like, let the performers cook. The humans are doing a great job. One of the things that makes movie musicals great is just seeing the grandiose set pieces with lots of people doing incredible choreography. You don't need all the camera movements, my friend. Like, you don't need all the fast whizzing cuts and stuff. Like, yo, let's just see the people be amazing people, and that is actually the thing that excites everybody in the audience. But fortunately that the performances are so good, like they shine through no matter what, and like I said, it's a fun story, so very, very entertaining watch. I was pleasantly surprised.
All right, Grandpa Brian.
Yes,
Camera
somebody has to
shouldn't
say
be
it.
moving. Let the actors cook.
Fast
Let
Yeah,
them work.
I was like, Wes was in his old man bag when Brian said, hold my beer.
I
Again,
loved that last song, the Defying Gravity song. I thought that was
That shit
phenomenal
was
and
tough.
great action around it, right? Like they're doing, like the monkeys are charging in at that point, and
Just
they're
flying
just like
over
running for their
planes.
lives. It was super cool, and then obviously just like the power in that song from the singer and from the music itself, just totally awesome. So love that we get to look to the western sky and see another installment of this in a few years. I don't know. It's supposed to come out next year, I think, actually.
It's a year
So
from now.
that'll be good times. All right, friends. I think we're gonna wrap it up there. Any last minute thoughts?
That song, The Wizard and I, has her foreshadow her own death twice, and that broke my heart. She
Mm.
talked
how?
about she could just melt, and she had another line about they'll have a day where they celebrate me in Oz, and I was like, ooh,
Oh right,
Oh, yeah.
ooh, baby.
Celebrate you in the wrong way.
Yeah, it's like, and then moments later, they're burning her effigy. I just had to point out, man, that was one of the most heartbreaking. Like, oh man, she's so gassed up. This is gonna end poorly for you, dog.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like she literally did nothing wrong that entire movie. Not a
Right.
single thing wrong.
Enemy of the state.
Yep. All right, friends. That'll do it for us. Be on the lookout. We should be talking about Arcane coming up here in a little bit. I think we're gonna take a break next week, and then we'll come back in a few weeks and have some Arcane breakdown season 2. That show is confusing, so make sure you allow dedicated Arcane time, because if you're not paying attention, let me tell you, you will have to rewatch the episode to catch everything, because everything's happening on screen in subtle moments, in like looks. It's all there for you.
What do you know? Visual storytelling. Hey, how about that?
Oh, you missed those characters' glance? Well, are you even trying to watch this show, bro?
And you missed like half the meaning of the show. So definitely, if you're staying up with it, make sure that you're watching Arcane, because we're going to talk about that, and it will take you some time. But I've really enjoyed it, but also been very confused by this show. All right, take it easy. We're out of here. Bye.